Buren St. George's.
The Honourable Member for Random Buren St. George's. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to take part in the debate on the importance of small and medium-sized enterprises. And of course, this was a topic that was looked at and addressed by the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. It's an issue of vital importance, I think, to our economy, and even though it's been dealt with in committee and there have been recommendations coming out of our committee, anytime there is an opportunity to speak to this issue, I think is one that we need to take advantage of. And when we have a venue such as this one, where, of course, those engaged in small and medium enterprises can tune in and listen and hear the debate about what has happened not only in committee, but now here in the House of Commons, that is an opportunity that we should take advantage of. There's been a great deal of concern expressed by medium and small business, Madam Speaker, about access to government contracts. And when you look at the federal government and the fact that it buys approximately $14 billion worth of goods and services each year from thousands of suppliers, it is no wonder that small and medium-sized enterprises want to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. But what we heard in our committee was constant frustration with the system, constant frustration with not being able to access in a way that is a way that they can afford. What we found and what we heard from those who appeared before our committee was that the process that was in place that they had to utilize in order to access contracts, in order to put in proposals, was very cumbersome. And while it may be possible for larger businesses to take advantage and use that type of process, because of course of the resources they have available to them, that is not the case for small and medium-sized enterprises. And when you put extra burden on a small and medium-sized enterprise in terms of making the process so burdensome for them that they probably say, well, it's not worth the effort. Or they end up putting so much effort into it only to turn around and find that they did not win the contract. Then that becomes a problem for those businesses. I think we all recognize the importance of small, medium-sized enterprises in our country. And I certainly do, certainly in our ridings, and I know in the riding of Random Buren St. George's that I represent, it's certainly the backbone of the economy in my riding, as it is in the province that I represent, and that is Newfoundland and Labrador. When you look at rural communities, the majority of businesses are indeed small businesses. In fact, I would go so far as to say there are very few medium-sized enterprises in rural Canada. So it's really important that we do everything we can to assist small and medium-sized businesses, many of whom probably hire less than 10 people. Then the definition of a small, medium-sized enterprise is anything 100 people or less. But I would venture to say, Madam Speaker, that there are a lot of small businesses in our country that indeed hire a lot fewer than 100 people, and these businesses are indeed the backbone of our economy in rural communities. So what we heard time and time again from the witnesses that appeared before our committee was just how cumbersome the process is. They came before our committee because they recognized an opportunity to actually make the case to try and get the process more streamlined, to try and get someone to accept and recognize that there are issues here in terms of small, medium-sized enterprises being able to make any kind of headway in terms of being able to access government contracts. And part of the fear as well that, of course, we hear all the time from small and medium-sized businesses is the bundling of contracts, and the fear that in bundling the contracts that they would not in fact have access to them, that what would happen is that larger corporations, larger businesses would be able to take advantage of the opportunities and then end up downloading or subcontracting business to that small, medium enterprise. When in fact, what we heard was the small, medium enterprise would like to have the opportunity to go in and bid of their own accord. One of the issues, I guess, that became apparent as we listened to the witnesses appear before us is that when you talk about the value of federal government business in our country, that the volume of federal contracts awarded to small and medium enterprises, in fact, went down from, in 2004-2005, from 68% to, in the following year, to 67%, the following year down to 64%, and we've seen a little bit of a bump, Madam Speaker, in 2007-2008 to 65%. So there are some very serious issues here as far as small and medium enterprises are concerned, because they're gradually seeing an erosion of their access to government contracts. We did hear overwhelming testimony that small and medium enterprises are indeed frustrated with the federal procurement process. From cumbersome and expensive to complete request for proposal processes to the government, not paying interest on overdue accounts, many small, medium enterprises have just given up trying to bid on federal government contracts. That's serious, Madam Speaker. It's certainly serious for rural parts of our country, because again, the majority of businesses in rural parts of Canada are in fact small and medium enterprises. So if they're going to give up, what does that say about the opportunity for people to be employed in rural Canada? What does that say about opportunities for people who want to stay in rural parts of our country, but who, because there will be no employment opportunity, will be forced to leave and move elsewhere?